Good evening and welcome to the Buckland Select Board meeting for Tuesday, September 23rd. It's 5 p.m. We will first roll into our agenda items. First item is we have a new tax collector, Quinn Kusmana. Hello, Quinn.
Hello.
So how are things going?
Well, I like
You've been going for a couple of weeks now, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, you can move up into the table so that you're near the microphone,
Oh, okay.
because everything is recorded.
If I must.
Maybe you could
Love being on TV.
introduce
It's my
yourself to
favorite.
maybe
Mine
people
too.
who don't know you, it might be nice, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm Quinn Kuzmano. I am from the other side of the bridge, unfortunately. I grew up in Shelburne my whole life, and I started as tax collector a few weeks ago.
Good. Very good. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We'll steal Heather's comment and welcome to hashtag Team Buckland.
Yes.
We haven't gotten to hear that for a while.
I
so.
know.
I'll have
I
to get a
know.
new sweatshirt.
That's right. We'll have to get
Team
some of
Buckland,
those.
we were thinking of getting a bunch of stuff this year.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. But no, Quinn's been great. We've really enjoyed kind of rebuilding our ranks downstairs and
Good.
filling some vacancies, and I think it's going really well. So
Good.
we're moving forward.
We thought that she was gonna fit in nicely, and I guess she has. Good, Quinn.
Yes. And Quinn, you know all of our select board at this point, or?
I haven't met Clinton Joan yet, formally.
Okay.
I think your name sounds familiar.
Mhm.
I think I know you through family a bit.
Probably.
Yeah.
I grew up on this side of
Caroline
the
Yeah.
Phillips,
so.
Susan's mother, she worked at Buckland Shelburne. She was a pair at Buckland
Oh,
Shelburne.
right. You would have known Mrs. Phillips. I betcha.
Long time
Long
ago.
time ago, Quinn, yes. But wait a minute, I can still remember you, so, think about that.
Yeah. You're very memorable.
Uh-oh. Let's move on.
So glad you were able to come and
Yes.
meet everybody.
Glad she's here too.
Officially.
Yes, thanks for stopping in tonight and
And-
welcome aboard. And
Do you want to share your hours that you're open?
I am open 9 to 3, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So come see Quinn for all your tax collection needs.
all right, thank you.
All right, I'm
Thanks,
gonna take
Quinn.
off.
Oh, yes, yes.
Nice to meet you all.
You too.
See you later.
Next, we have a technology committee appointment. We have Abby Strauss.
For a one-year appointment. So the technology committee is a fairly new committee that has been, Joan is on it, myself, and Scott McMillan, and Alicia. And we've been working on trying to figure lots of things out here in town with, our Northeast IT situation, making sure that we're getting the best IT services that we can have, and a few glitches we've been having, and some thoughts about changing how we're sharing information and so forth. So Abby has she attended our first meeting as a guest, and definitely seems to have some information she can offer and some skills. So we asked if she would like to be appointed, and she said she would. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, she has a great skill set.
Yeah.
All right. I would make a motion to appoint Abby Strauss to the technology committee for 1-year term.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And with one coming in, we have one going out. We had a letter of resignation from David Perella from the Buckland Historic Commission. Do you have one? Saw a letter from
Yeah, there was one.
So he's made that effective immediately. All right, well, that's a big loss for the Historic Commission, because I know David did a lot for them. And hopefully maybe someday he'll want to come back. At this point, I would make a motion to accept the resignation letter from David Perella.
I second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, David, for what you've done
Yes.
for our town.
And next, we are looking to dissolve the Cable Advisory Committee.
Yes, Alicia had noticed as she was going through the annual appointment cycle that the Advisory Committee has not been active for a couple of years. It's typically when we're doing our contract negotiations with Comcast.
Yeah.
And I guess typically it is dissolved and just hasn't been. So this is sort of a cleanup, sort of a item.
Gotcha. Alright, it looks like the next contract isn't until 2032, so we'll have time to
Yes,
form a new one.
we will.
No we stuff, not in 2032.
You never know, Larry.
Oh, okay.
We can pick you up and get you down.
Thanks.
There's an elevator, we can wheel you in. I'll make a motion to dissolve the Cable Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we have a special town meeting that we're coming up, and it is time to open that warrant.
Yes, my first special town meeting. So trying to get all the ducks in a row here.
This will be memorable for you.
It will be memorable, I hope.
Yes.
Hopefully the first of many. So we had sort of initially thought November 20th. In speaking with our moderator, she was hoping we could do either the 19th or the 18th. We had a request to use the upstairs for another kind of important event, a listening session for the joint Shelburne Board of Health and Buckland Board of Health on the 19th. So that left us with the 18th. It'll be a little tight. Believe it or not, that seems like a long way away, but there's a lot of things that have to happen to have a special town meeting. So if we were to open the warrant tonight, we would have to close the warrant on October 28th and have it posted by November 4th, because it needs to be 14, at the latest, it has to be 14 days in advance.
Again, what is gonna be on?
I'm getting there, yes.
November,
November 18th.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah. And on the docket right now, I mean, obviously we've opened it, so there may be other things that come forward, but what we kind of know about now, Alicia in the clerk's office has been working with her bylaw codification group on reorganizing the bylaws, making some minor changes to different parts of the bylaws. So has presented it back to the company that she's working with. So that has to, I think the planning board has to have a special hearing to adopt some of those changes as well. That's why we have a lot of, a lot of ducks to get in that row. Also on the warrant will be the funds that we need to appropriate to pay for the education and transportation for the Smith vocational student that we did not know about when we budgeted last year. And also to appropriate funds to pay for the additional health insurance costs that are starting that increase in October from HCGIT. I don't have the actual numbers yet. I want to work with Kara on determining that. And we'll have to work between myself, the town accountant, and, you know, legal counsel to work out the actual article.
Did I miss the date? Miss the date?
18th.
That's the date you want to have it
Of
on?
November,
Yeah, okay, because I do have that then.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Have we been assured that there's not going to be another increase this year?
For health insurance? No, we have not. I've been, actually Larry Langford and myself have been attending the various meetings that have come up. There hasn't been any real updates that I can share with you, other than they don't know yet, until they start getting more numbers in from everything from Medicare. Those numbers haven't even come to them yet. From the federal government, and also they haven't implemented the new increase to see kind of where that falls. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts to this. I'm trying to go to every meeting I can that they talk about it to kind of position ourselves. Right now, I think Larry and I sort of are of the opinion that we're sort of just waiting it out at this point, because really there's no company that isn't somehow being affected by these changes to some extent. So
So have they officially stopped covering that?
October 1st, they were gonna stop covering the GLP-1s for anything besides
Diabetic
diabetes.
people who have diabetes, yes.
Yeah. So to be determined on that a little bit. So that's the story with the special town meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to open the special town meeting warrant for the special town meeting to be held on November 18th, and for the warrant to be closed on October 28th.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's it for agenda items. Wayne, are we waiting for anyone else with you, or you're up? All right, so we'll get to you a little bit early then.
Okay.
We got about 10 after 5, so we have Wayne Biden
But I ain't said anything.
from Plan Sustain Inc. He's here to present the Deerfield River Wild and Scenic Study and Management Plan, and is looking for a letter of support for National Wild and Scenic River designation for portions of the Deerfield River. Welcome, Wayne.
Thank you. So I wasn't here 2 or 3 years ago, but the Deerfield River Watershed Association approached you all, and you wrote a letter of support then for asking the Deerfield River go through the study process in Congress. So you supported the process then. It went to Congress for the study committee. The Senate voted unanimously to pass it, which would basically have funded a study. It died in the House. So that was last January. The bill's been reintroduced and nothing's happened since then, and probably nothing will happen. So in the meantime, the Deerfield River Watershed Association applied for a woodlands partnership grant to basically say, we don't want to wait for Congress to fund this. We want to go forward and do this process ourselves. It does make it a little bit odd because obviously this is Massachusetts, so the state is only funding the study on this side of the border. Hopefully someday the river going into Vermont would be National Wild and Scenic, but
Okay.
the Commonwealth isn't going to fund a study in a different state. I'm a planning consultant. I was with Plan Sustain. I've now finished that. I'm now working full-time at Center for Resilient Metro Regions at UMass is my day job, but I'm finishing up this contract as a private consultant for doing it. So I just want to walk you through sort of what we found in the process. We had a study committee. It was made up of representatives for all the towns. Again, I wasn't here, but you appointed a representative from Buckland. We met both here and in Greenfield for the last basically year process and going through. So they were our steering committee as we found results and went to them. So let me just sort of walk you through this process. Oops, sorry, turning this on will be useful. So sort of the quick overview in the process is the only parts of a river that are eligible for being wild and scenic are free-flowing rivers. And as you probably know, in 1914, I think it was, this was the most dammed river anywhere in the United States. Since then, there's been major river projects out west, so other ones are more dammed. But so we're looking at a lot of river segments. Do you want to come over here? A lot of river segments, so it's not a continuous piece. So in order to be eligible, a river has to be free-flowing, but you're allowed to jump over. You can have 20 different segments with some things in between. And it has to have what's called outstandingly, I'm not sure why they use that word, outstandingly resource values. Basically, really special things on a New England scale or a nationwide scale. So these aren't supposed to be lots of rivers. It's supposed to be rivers that really stand out. And so our study process was really identifying what was free-flowing, what wasn't, what are outstandingly remarkable values, what's the existing protections out there, and what are the benefits and disadvantages of being listed as wild and scenic river. So the overview is there are a lot of really amazing resources. I'm sure you all know that better than I do. There seemed to be a consensus from the past town votes from our committee that it's worth going forward. And so the rest of the study is really sort of the details, the meat and potatoes, what's eligible, what isn't eligible for doing it. And feel free to interrupt at any point in the process. So we're looking at both the Deerfield River and all the major tributaries to the river. The minor tributaries don't have as outstanding resource values. So we looked at all these rivers, mostly focused on Massachusetts, as I said, went a little bit into Vermont. The reason I mentioned that I'm with the Center for Resilient Metro Regions is my center's done a couple projects in Vermont. We just completed a resilience study in sort of this area of Vermont, and we've applied for a grant to do the same thing in Vermont that we did in Massachusetts, which may or may not come through in the process. So I'm not going to go through all the details of anything in these slides. I'm happy to send you the slides if you want it. I don't want to bore you in the process, but the normal way that rivers are designated is that Congress authorizes a study of the river. The study takes place. It comes back to Congress, who authorizes it as a wild and scenic river. There are other ways to do it. So if we did a study, which we're working on, Congress could still designate the river and skip their funded study process. There's a process where the governor of the state can petition the Secretary of Interior, and the Secretary of Interior could designate the river. That's what happened to the Westfield River, which is the closest wild and scenic river to here. It didn't go through it went through a study, but it didn't go through the Congress piece up front. And feel free to interrupt or ask
Yeah, I'm
questions.
familiar with that. I lived in Worthington and I was a reporter. And I remember when that happened. But I actually think the Deerfield has more free-flowing than the Westfield did.
Yeah, and Deerfield has amazing things. The Cold River, there's not that many rivers that have no dams on them. The Cold River has no dams on it. So it has some great sections, and then obviously the main stem has lots of things, right over here that's not free-flowing.
Right.
But yeah, it certainly does. It's a much bigger system, so anyway, I'm not sure the percent, but. So, we're sort of looking at both those approaches. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the benefits, it's not that big a benefit because it's a huge territory, is wild and scenic rivers get about $210,000 a year for management benefits. $210,000 is nice, except this is a vast territory, so there's not that much per community. That's frankly one of the disadvantages of Westfield is a smaller watershed. So you get the same amount per river, whether it's the Taunton and the Westfield, or whether it's Deerfield, which is a bigger river.
And what can that money be used for?
So there's a local committee that's formed, and you guys get to figure out its own governance structure. So anything which advances the management of the river. So often it's used, communities do different things. It can be used for a very small culvert project. Again, 210 for the entire region isn't that far, but some regions do a small culvert project. Often, I'm sure Pamela knows this in terms of grant writing, often when you're applying for grant, the first dollar is hard to get. So you might, for example, for a culvert replacement, you might pay for the design yourself out of that money and then apply for MVP funding or Division of Ecological Restoration funding for the actual capital project that goes up. So it can be, and the region just comes together and figures out how do they want to use it. Anything which advances the goals of a wild and scenic river and regional management could be eligible. You could hire FERCog to advance zoning if that helped you. So again, it's a regional, it's a local decision. Towns have no obligation to take part in that local governance, but then you don't have a seat at the table for getting the money. So most towns want to have a seat at the table. Obviously, it's harder for a Florida or a Monroe just because they're so small. But my assumption is that Buckland would want to be at the table. I'm just looking at who is a member of our committee. So, short version, I think you all know this. Again, you live here, so you know better than I do, but amazing resources, recreation. So we classify rivers as wild or scenic or recreation. So the designation, it doesn't really matter because they're all treated the same by Congress, but in breaking down what's here. So we look at all the resources that are unique. Some things fit in more than one category, but obviously the rapids you have arguably the best rapids in all of the state, and amazing fishing access. Some of you may know if you fish, that the river between shade and depth not only is obviously an amazing trout stream, but it's more resilient to increasing temperatures. So right now it's an amazing trout stream, and there's other amazing trout streams that are out there. With climate change and higher water temperatures, a lot of those other trout rivers are not going to be as good. So the upper Deerfield, which is mostly in Vermont and just a little bit into Massachusetts, is actually the most resilient trout stream in all of Vermont and Massachusetts. There are more resilient ones in Maine, not surprisingly, but so it has these amazing resources that are out there. Recreation resource, again, not going through this all. The tallest trees in Massachusetts, the oldest growth trees in all of Massachusetts. I always knew the ones in the Mohawk Trail State Park, but there's 3 different groves out in those areas. So lots of things, the Mohawk Trail, Mohican Trail, following Native American history. 2 tribes have endorsed this process, and they sort of like those trails. I mean, they may not be exactly where Native Americans used for 1,000 years or several thousand years, but it's a memory of those areas. So lots of sites that are out there. Everything from 10,000 years of Native American history to a very limited Shaker history out here. So lots of great things. We talked about the history here, even though because this isn't wild and scenic, it's not eligible, but it sets the milieu, if you want, for the whole river being an amazing resource in the process. Many years ago, there was this national river inventory on looking at all federal properties for which ones would qualify, and the Forest Service for the Green Mountain Forest, which is sort of the, obviously Vermont and the west branch of the river, they determined, I think 20 years ago now, 15 years ago now, that the river in the National Forest, much of the river in National Forest, is eligible for wild and scenic. They didn't look anything off of federal properties. They didn't do the rest of this assessment. So what I have is a series of things. I promise I'm not going to go through all these slides. But we went through each river segment and identified what was there. So again, leaving out the places which were not free-flowing. So basically from the mill race below each dam to the northern or the uppermost part of the pool behind each dam. Those are the areas that aren't eligible in the process. And then there was one area in Greenfield which was free-flowing, but the water quality is so poor that we didn't think it was eligible in the process. But otherwise, the free-flowing is the main criteria.
Should Buckland be one of the towns listed?
Not to reach
Okay,
one.
this is, okay.
Right. So this is dam, unfortunately we weren't consistent in the reach directions, but this is dam 2,
Okay,
which is below.
gotcha.
So, amazing, everything from historic rivers to Native American sites to Deerfield Village. So, very rich in both human history and natural history over here. Segment Reach 2 is, yes, Buckland comes over here. Again, you all know this, very scenic areas. Some of these things are easily qualify at amazing at the New England scale. Some might be nice locally. So you notice we skip, this is segment Reach 2, we skip to Reach 4. So mostly that's because it's not free-flowing. This is the section right through town here. There is about 2,000 feet below the last dam there before you get to the pool for the next dam. It's a beautiful area, but we didn't think it was beautiful at sort of a national scale. Really nice. It was actually one of the property owners said, "Oh, you should include me. I'd love to protect." And I would love it if you or Franklin Land Trust or somebody else wanted to work with that landowner to protect the land. It's a great resource, but again, it didn't seem like that 2,000 feet made it eligible. But obviously Sunburn Beach, the rocks there. I mean, a lot of amazing resources.
No swimming anymore.
Like where Sunburn Beach is, that's still considered free-flowing, even though it's just below
There's a line.
Charlemont Dam?
Yeah, so there's a line that's there. I don't know exactly where in the ground the line is, but, so we had, if you notice, only 0.6 of a mile. So the whole reach is 2.86 miles, 2.86. Only 0.6 of a mile is eligible. So no, most of it's not, but there's that small section.
But it's got the North River coming down into it, and, so that may be why Sunburn Beach is right in, yeah.
Yes, right. So often it is a combination of those things that make a place important in the process. And then as you get upstream, same thing, there's more dams, so we're skipping more. This is Reach 5, which is, it still includes a little bit of Buckland. This is the biggest single reach on the river, and you can also see 16 miles are eligible, so 2.26 miles are not eligible. That's the area that an awful lot of people know about in terms of recreation, those kinds of things. A lot of the anglers go there and further upriver, but in terms of sort of recreation, so amazing resource. So now we're north of you, or north and west of Buckland. So, but again, if you know the area, still some great fishing. Some of the fishing gets even better. Some wild trout species, so not stocked. The state's actually doing less stocking at a request from Trout Unlimited to say, we want to encourage these breeding populations that are out here. Still some whitewater boating, more seasonal whitewater boating, spring freshet, heavy rain, those kinds of things. Cold River is one of the few rivers in all of New England, frankly, even Maine, that's totally wild from, the source to, in this case, the confluence. Not that it's that long a river, but so it makes it pretty special both for fishing and just as a nature. One of the things you see down here, things that are nearby, we're supposed to only include things which are really river dependent. So some of it's easy. If you're within a quarter of a mile of the river, it's clearly river dependent. If you're in the river, it's clearly river dependent. The historical settlements are a little trickier because the settlements are where they are because of the river, even though the settlements, for the most part, aren't within that quarter of a mile. So we sort of explained that. We thought we had enough things in the river in a quarter of a mile that were eligible. And we would then talk about Charlemont and other villages along the way, even if that itself didn't make them eligible in the process. Green River likewise. So we know, obviously, this is the area you start getting to more urban. So the lowest part of the Green River is the part where there's some water quality challenges out here, but most of the Green River is pretty good. And Greenfield's actually looking at the river and thinking about what they can do about water quality. I'm not part of that process, so I have no idea what they can do, but that's sort of hope. South River, again, most of the South River, I think there's just some I'm not sure if there's any hydro dams on here. Anything that's not free-flowing makes us ineligible, even if it's an old mill dam. I can't remember what the dam was on the South River. North River, again, most of the river is eligible, more in a sort of a natural state. North River West Branch, North River East Branch, so all the branches sort of similar. Most of the covered bridges are historic. There's one in Greenfield, which is just a reproduction of a covered bridge. There's one that's actually on top of a dam. There's a waterfall that's actually made by a dam that's not eligible, but for the most part. Pelham Brook, again, you can see we're getting to smaller brooks, not the tiny brooks that are out here. We skip, and I'm going to blank out a name, I apologize, the brook that comes right through Charlemont. We looked at it, had some good features, but it's actually channelized as it goes through Charlemont right by the school. And so that we thought wasn't eligible. So you're not going to see a slide for this because we didn't include that. Maybe a slide later. So again, I'm going fast in the things that aren't in Buckland, but pretty amazing resources all along this area. Hudson Brook, so pretty amazing. We looked at sort of different sources. Like I had never known this till we started doing the research, but Smith College and UMass take their geology students up to look at the exposed rock. I'm not a geologist at all, but apparently it's really special. I mean, not like special, universally special, but special in New England, and at least it's good for students coming here. And so that fits the thing of being special from a New England scale, maybe not special from a nationwide scale that's out here. The reason this is sort of an interesting process is the wild and scenic process really began with western rivers, massive rivers that are mostly on land owned by the National Forest or the National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management. Then they created this process called a partnership river. And those rivers, the idea is eventually the federal government will buy most of the valuable land, Grand Canyon, those kinds of things. The partnership river is totally separate. No expectations ever of the Park Service buying a single inch, right? I mean, there may be reasons that, you partner with Forest Service in particular in Vermont, but generally that's not the point. The partnership river is really to enable the partners, land trusts, towns, state agencies, to partner for doing it. And there's still bias, some in the Park Service, about big, majestic, don't take this personally, but people don't necessarily fly all over the world to see the Deerfield the way they fly to see the Grand Canyon. But it is still an amazing resource. People certainly.
I'm shocked to hear that.
But the flip side is, I'm now measuring things by an electric vehicle charge. You have like 60 some odd million people within a single EV charge, all of New York and New Jersey and Boston. So you actually have more people who can come here easily. And that's important because the scenic river, there's this little bit of federal funds. There's a regulatory protection, which I'll talk about in a second. And then probably the most valuable part is getting that blue line in a map makes things more attractive for tourists. Right? You know where it is. And so that's hard to measure, but probably really important in terms of what the benefits for doing. I guess I'll mention while we're here the regulatory side. So Wild and Scenic does not create any new regulatory requirements whatsoever. Nobody has to apply for a permit they wouldn't have otherwise. But if you have to apply for a water resources permit anyway, it brings more partners to the table. So the Park Service, who doesn't generally review applications for, massive waterworks, a new dam in a place there never was a dam, they would be at the table reviewing. It doesn't add to the time because it's the same process. It's not going to affect your normal culvert replacement programs. It would affect if you were ever doing culvert that was so big that it needed U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permits. It would mean the Park Service will be at the pit table reviewing that. Shouldn't be any substantive difference because they're mostly there already. But that's sort of the regulatory part of the piece. FERC, anybody, because it's not affecting things that aren't wild and scenic, anybody with a FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the dam licenses, anybody with a FERC license is unaffected by this process. If those dams were ever decommissioned, which seems unlikely, then potentially they could become wild and scenic. The more likely is there are still a few mill dams and old small dams along the river. If they ever were removed, and I don't know if you have it in your stretch, but if they're ever removed, then they potentially could be added to this process. So Bog Brooks is one of those interesting ones. It's undammed in the section we looked at, but there's actually a small dam at the headwaters behind Bog Pond. So everything we looked at is free flowing, but we begin 2 feet below a dam that's there, very small dam. Mill Pond, Mill Brook, Chapel Brook, again, I'm not going to run through these. So then I've already met most of these. Rice Brook was the one I couldn't remember the name that goes through Charlemont. The main stem I already talked about there. Sherman Reservoir, obviously, is not free flowing. And then the section in Deerfield and Greenfield where the water's pretty contaminated. I won't go through all these, but one of the things we have to justify is that the river's beloved. It's not like everybody ignores the river. There's opportunities for better management, but there's pretty good management. I think all but one of the towns have zoning. They have floodplain zoning. Obviously, in Massachusetts, there's wetlands protection. So there's a lot of rules in play. Franklin FERCog did an assessment of all the regulatory schemes along the entire area. And they certainly found some challenges and some opportunities, not surprising for a small town. But most of the towns have pretty good protection. I think our conclusion is, at the level of projects that people are applying for, you have really good regulatory protection. The challenge is you never know. Some of the towns that are very small, Florida, Monroe, they may not be equipped if some investor bought 200 acres of land and did a 100-unit project. So there's not regulatory protection. There's protections for what locals are doing on a day-to-day basis. There may not be protections for some of the places on those big things that don't come up very often. Again, I opened with this, lots of support. The category in the middle, that includes Buckland from your vote, whenever that was 3 years ago. We're now going back to all these towns and asking for a new letter of support, given that we've done the study and want to go back to Congress and go on to the next process. So that's where we are now. Again, all of our delegation for this region and the delegation for Vermont co-sponsored the bill that made it through the Senate and then died in the House, and they've basically reintroduced the bill again this time. Markley's taking the lead, government taking the lead, sorry, as the prime sponsor, but everybody's been on board in the process. So, we asked the committee, what are the challenges? Some of these are not surprising. Invasive plants is the first category.
Yes,
Duckweed.
duckweed is all up and down, going to Charlemont. You
All down the river.
can't fish, you can't get out of it.
Right. But unfortunately, everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I've been in the environmental field for 45 years, and I always say there's incredible progress in preserving open space, and every year, everywhere we lose progress. I mean, Japanese knotweed in particular along the river, but
Yeah.
lots of other things.
And is that protected, or can they be taken down?
Go ahead, take them down.
No, I can't, I imagine.
Yes, they certainly can be taken down.
That's what I was wondering.
They do grow vegetatively, so there's a risk if you don't do it the right way. Like if you just cut it and leave the stalks, you might actually be making it worse.
Yeah,
The right way is to cut it in the fall, and if it doesn't bother you, not spray herbicide, but dab the stem. Like I was plant director in Northampton for 35 years.
maybe it'll happen sometime around here, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's a shocking. I'm a fisherman who can't get down the river.
Oh, it's getting worse, yeah.
Just terrible.
Absolutely.
What I'm doing, we bought a house that the whole hill has knotweed, and so I'm fighting it by using another invasive plant of grass.
Oh,
And then I keep weed whacking it every 2 weeks or something, and I've noticed in a year, it's thinning out, but
Yeah.
I have to keep at it. But the grass is doing a great job of strangling it.
that's great. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know the grass part, but if you keep at it, you can get it, but it has to be that aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's the bane of my existence.
yeah.
5 years we've been fighting it, but
I
it's,
fought it for 15.
it's almost gone, except our neighbors still have it, so.
Yeah, no, I don't have, our neighbors don't have it, it's just.
I see it when, I don't get up and walk fishing, but you go up towards Charlemont, and I can't even see the river anymore.
Everywhere.
And it's
It's
sad.
everywhere.
It's sad.
Horrible.
It really is, yeah.
We were just on the Cape, and I didn't see it, and then I saw one spot, and they gotta take care of that, or else it's just gonna go
It
wild.
goes
on the
fast.
Cape.
Oh, it doesn't take long.
No.
Other management issue which came up a lot in both good and bad is not enough access points and the river being loved to death in some places. And so it's the balance act. How do you get people in who are going to take care of it and not have it loved to death? And some of it is both the volume of people, and some people are obviously more respectful than other people out there. So, all we can do is identify those issues, some debris out there. These are the sorts of things where that federal funds can help. But again, $210,000 is not very much money for such a big area. Everything helps in the process for doing it. And so, I won't go through this, but, there are lots of things that you all have as a region. I'm not talking about Buckland now, but as a region, lots of things you all have, lots of opportunities that are out there. In Vermont, even more than Massachusetts, it is the most hyper-local place I've ever worked in my life. Like, I'm doing a project in Reedsboro, which is just over the line from Monroe, and 485 people, but they don't talk to any other towns, and they do for school systems. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. They're overwhelmed. I mean, it's understandable. They're the first to say, we don't have time to get our head above water if we're doing it. Not quite as bad here. I think FERCog does a good job, but there's always opportunities for, regional sharing of resources that are out there. I always think we're not a rich state, and then I compare to Vermont, and I realize we are a rich state. So some things we just have more state resources. So, there are opportunities that are out here, and I think I've gone through these already. So it does increase the attention paid to existing water resources federal permits, doesn't add any new permits, doesn't add any to the time, and I say doesn't affect the FERC licensing process. You all know you've been through this, right? There's a 40-year license. I don't know where your dams are in the process, but Gray River Hydro starts planning 5 years before it's up for renewal, so I'm sure they're in good shape for doing it. So that's sort of, the Park Service will say the regulatory side is the heart of the law. we're not a fast-growing area, we're not getting proposals for new dams, so the things which are so major elsewhere are less. Then there's the money, then there's the tourism that comes, not automatically, obviously, but the recognition helps. And I think just it does get people to play in the sand better together.
Is the inclusion of brooks, is that something different than the Westfield River?
I wasn't involved with the Westfield process, but anything's eligible if they're free-flowing and if they're outstandingly resource values. Westfield had 4 branches, right?
I think it's 3, isn't it? Middle, west, and east,
There is 4, there's a small one,
a small.
yeah. So I don't know why they didn't do smaller brooks, or if there weren't as many. Just don't know that. I mean, I know the Westfield itself.
I don't think they did them all at the same time.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Right. Chris Curtis, who's my partner in this
Oh, I remember
process.
Chris,
Okay,
yeah.
he was very involved with that, so
Yeah.
he could answer that, but unfortunately, I can't in that process.
That's okay, I'll concentrate on this one.
Okay. And they're just celebrating, I think this weekend, actually, their 25th anniversary of being designated, so they're still going strong. And then, we've done this outreach, again, I've opened with this, we had these 7 meetings for the steering committee. We've had a few community meetings. One was here, actually, a month ago. We did something online with Connecticut River Conservancy, met with Trout Unlimited, sort of trying to get the word out as much as possible. I would be the first, maybe it will change because you're on cable, I'd be the first to say if you knocked on doors in the region, I'm sure the vast majority of people don't know we're doing this. But all the sort of active players who are involved have been at the table. And the steering committee not only included the towns, but FERCog and Trout Unlimited, and so all those players that we get together. So been involved with the process. We're now at this final piece of asking communities to endorse. We're most of the way through. Nobody's turned us down. A couple communities are still thinking about it. A lot of communities have written letters to, as I say, 2 tribes have written letters. The committee approved the study on June 25th. We're making sort of technical changes since then. If you said I misspelled your name or we had a fact wrong, we're still making those changes, and then obviously inserting letters, but that's the final piece. And then, we're working with Congress. Deerfield River Watershed Association is trying to figure out, do they want to ask for the study money and still do or is it sort of not the most expensive study in the world? So they're trying to figure out, do they want a more detailed study, or do we have the information needed to ask Congress to designate it? I think it's unlikely Congress is going to be doing anything soon. To be clear, the Senate vote last January, this was called by unanimous consent. That doesn't mean they all voted for it. It meant nobody objected. Like anybody could object. It's sort of the equivalent of informal session for our state legislature. So it passed with no opposition. But I'm sure if you had asked 100 senators, probably only 4 of them knew what they were voting on. It wasn't controversial. I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, there were no advocacy groups who came out against it. That's what kills those things. But that's why it didn't have time to make it to the House with only 2 weeks after the Senate vote in the process. So we'll start that process again. That's my overview.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's definitely something that we want to do everything that we possibly can to preserve our waterways, so they don't end up like Greenfield. And I'm in full support of it. I would make a motion to vote on signing a letter of support for the Deerfield River Watershed Association, seeking congressional authorization and allowing the chair to sign that letter.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Is that the letter you want? Yep.
I think I have a copy in the documents signed folder.
I got one right here.
It's all done.
Make it easy. That way there, you can take that with you.
I'll send the scanned version.
Okay, thanks.
That's quick.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wayne.
And
Thank you, Wayne.
We're efficient.
I'm going to roll this out. Is that, it's going to make a little bit of noise? Is that okay?
You can also leave it and I can
Okay.
take care of it.
Okay.
You just unhook your stuff and I'll
Okay.
take care of it after, no worries.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next appointment is Carmella,
Hi, guys.
and she's here to discuss the Public Health Preparedness Grant.
So I'm not asking you for anything. This is education. Have you ever heard of a FEP coalition?
That's
Anybody?
what I've read over the last few days.
That's excellent. So, a little background on me. I worked with the Medical Reserve Corps, which you've probably also never heard of, for about 4 or 5 years through the pandemic. And the Medical Reserve Corps is what we call second responders. It's a volunteer organization that provides volunteers when someone asks for them, usually in an emergency situation. For example, if there's a shelter opening up because there's going to be really hot weather and we need to have a cooling shelter, you might call on an MRC to provide volunteers who are actually trained in sheltering, number one. They're also background checked and vetted and can come in and be there to do whatever in the shelter. You know, they can hand out water, they can register people. So that is how I got started in emergency management and emergency preparedness. I currently work for the Health and Medical something Coalition, which is housed at FERCOG, and I'm also on the Board of Health here. So all of these threads come together, and it's become clear that most people have no idea what I'm talking about. So that's why I'm here. The FEP coalitions are funded by the federal government through the Centers for Disease Control, and it's also tangentially affiliated with ASPR, the Assistant Secretary of Preparedness and Response. So these coalitions are at the very ground level, and they there's 4 in Region 1, which is Western Mass. So there's a Berkshire FEP coalition, Hamden, Hampshire, and Franklin. So the CDC funds FEP coalitions all over the place. The money that they provide goes to the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the Office of Preparedness and Emergency Management, so DPH/OPM. OPM and MDPH then send that money to the sponsoring organization, which is the HMCC, which is where I work. The HMCC then pushes this money out to the FEP coalitions. Again, in Western Mass, there's 4. And as a sponsoring organization, we administer the grants. We do procurement for the coalitions if they want to buy something, if they want to go to a conference, if whatever they want to do, we help administer that. The FEP coalitions are usually boards of health, people from boards of health who come together and work together in emergency preparedness. So FEP stands for Public Health Emergency Preparedness. Each FEP coalition in this part of the country, I don't know about everybody else, we get about $175,000 a year for each coalition to hire a coordinator who helps keep things running along, because everybody who's on a Board of Health is working full-time already. And also they, as I said, will buy things. The MAFCO, which is the Mohawk Area Public Health Coordinating Organization. MAFCO, which is Franklin County, last year bought emergency generator battery things that they are housed somewhere. So if there's an emergency and we need power, MAFCO has some. During the COVID clinics, MAFCO there's an emergency dispensing site, which is connected to MAFCO, and it's at the high school. And what that means is that if there is a need to immediately vaccinate the entire county, these emergency dispensing sites, in theory, get going. They deploy people, they get things going, they ask for MRC volunteers, and they set up an EDS at the high school. We did a few drills during COVID. We did a flu clinic, and we also did COVID clinics up at the high school, drive-through, and also walk-through in the bad weather. They were walk-through. So all this to say, the boards of health in Franklin County, including Buckland's, are or should be involved in MAFCO. It's a little bit under-coordinated right now. There's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of political infighting. There's been some pretty severe dysfunction, but we're trying to get it back up to functioning. And what you all may get at some point soon is a letter asking you to designate someone to be the representative from Buckland to MAFCO in order to help determine what this FEP funding is going to do and what resources we're going to buy for the region so that we're prepared in case of an emergency from a public health perspective. The other part of this is emergency management. So Herb is the emergency management director in town, and that is more on the MEMA side, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Association. I don't know, MEMA, administrator, I don't know, FEMA, MEMA. And so another thing that we're trying to do, and I personally am trying to do, is to get the EMDs and the boards of health to work together, because if there's an emergency, there are particular things that boards of health are supposed to do in case of an emergency, like if there's a flood like Katrina, to make sure that when things are being rebuilt, that they're being rebuilt in a safe way, to look at the mold situation, to look at the, the wet stuff. I mean, it's not a building code, it's a health code. And so we would be, MAFCO and boards of health would be secondary to emergency management in an emergency like that. But we would be perhaps called upon, we would expect to be called upon. And right now, with everything so disjointed in the world, there's a new sort of energy to try to get people to talk to each other about this stuff. Because, emergency preparedness is something that we all want to do, but we hope we never have to use it. So it's kind of hard to get people excited about it, but it is important. And I just wanted you all to know that FEP coalitions exist, that Buckland is part of one, and that we are charged with looking at emergency preparedness on a regional level to try to make sure that we're prepared in case what happens happens, and something always happens, right? So that's what I wanted to come talk to you about. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know, you were talking about the money that was spent on this generator. I don't understand, is it in each community, or is it just one somewhere, or what's it used for?
It's a regional asset. So the HMCC keeps track of these regional assets. For example, we coordinate with several different groups. One of them is hospitals. Mm-hmm. So the hospitals have certain assets like evacuation chairs in hospitals that can go down steps, because if there's an emergency you can't use the elevators, but you have patients who have to get out of the hospital. So last year, they instructed us to buy a bunch of striker chairs to get patients out. Another committee bought recently message boards that you can put in your car. They're 24 inches wide. You can program them with Bluetooth. So if there's, for example, a shelter set up, you can put up one of these message boards and say, go this way to the shelter. It's housed, these particular ones are housed at a fire station in Amherst and another one in Pittsfield. And part of the regional asset piece is that there has to be a deployment plan. So if we called Amherst and said, hey, we need that message board, there would be a way for us to get it. There's also a big warehouse in Franklin, Mass. that DPH just opened a couple of weeks ago that has a tremendous amount of stuff. So you may not recall, but when COVID first hit, when the shutdown first happened, there were no masks, like N95s. So they have a huge stash of N95s. They do expire, so then they have to replenish them from time to time. But so that's another asset. But regionally, these generators are housed somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but somebody does. And if we need them, we ask for them and we'll get them. And we have a list of all the assets and where they are and when they expire and who has them and how to deploy them.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
And I'm glad you're a Buckland resident and being able to stay on top of all of that with your position. Myself, I mean, we mostly tend to work more on the MEMA side.
Right.
So seeing the, more of the Board of Health side is really news to me, because we don't deal with that a lot.
Right. And it's do you work with mass response at all? Or with WebEOC?
Not much.
Well, WebEOC is a computer-based database. There's a MEMA WebEOC, and there's also a DPH WebEOC. All the boards of health have primary and secondary contacts listed in WebEOC, and they do drills quarterly, and we're supposed to call in and log in and confirm that our contact information is correct as soon as the drill goes out. This is so, again, if there's an emergency, DPH knows how to get a hold of us, and we know that it works. We know that, 2 weeks ago we had a drill and you responded, so here you go. We have an actual emergency now. And in the case of an emergency like that, the DPH WebEOC will be fed into the MEMA WebEOC. So MEMA will know that the boards of health are here. Not as first responders, obviously, but as support people.
We went through COVID, but what would constitute an emergency now?
Anything. Could be a fire, could be a flood, natural disasters.
Okay.
Could be a blizzard. Like last year, was it last year when Heath had no power for 4 days and nobody could get there? Something like that would potentially impact public health because people could be freezing to death. So that's something that we might be called on to help with.
Right, if they're on support in some way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. And as we say, there's going to be another emergency, like yesterday. So,
It's not if, it's when.
Not what?
I said it's not if, it's when.
It's when,
Yeah.
exactly. So, so we're here. The Medical Reserve Corps is, well, actually the Franklin Reserve Corps is in a kaput too, but we're trying to get it reorganized. But all to say that the boards of health do have a role in responding to an emergency and being prepared for emergencies from a public health perspective. And that's what I wanted to tell you about. And
Excellent.
you've got all these papers you can read about it in depth, should you want to.
Probably tonight, I will.
I'm sure you will, when you're trying to fall asleep. You'll get to page 2 and you'll be like, I know. But, and if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me.
No, thank you, I'm glad you're doing this.
And I just wanted to raise awareness.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmella.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the time.
All right, contract and grant documents, we don't have anything.
Sent you another email.
Permits and licenses, we have a one-day liquor license for the cider days to be held on November 1st.
It's there somewhere.
Raven Books.
Think it's the same place as last year, which I think was at outside of there.
Yeah, Raven Books at the mill.
Yep.
Oh, down at the mill?
Yep.
Okay. I did not make it down there last year, did you?
I did send it to Chief Bardwell, have not heard back,
Okay.
so.
Well, they're not gonna be looking at closing any streets or,
No, but as a one-day liquor license, we include him in that
yep,
process.
gotcha. Alright, would, make a motion to sign the one-day liquor license, pending the approval of the police chief.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes. We have Mary's awesome minutes from September
you
9th.
don't.
Oh, not from, from November 9th, or
No,
September 9th.
they're not there at all. They're coming.
That's right, I didn't get an email from you
No,
yesterday or today.
at 1 in the morning.
It's-
Put those on the next agenda.
Yep, so that'll come up on the next one. We do, however, have vendor and payroll warrants, 2607. We'll make a motion to accept the both vendor and payroll warrants.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Items not reasonably anticipated by chair, 48 hours in advance. I don't have anything. Right, Pam, I don't have anything?
No,
Okay,
no,
just checking.
nope.
Select board member concerns?
I just want to say with Clint here and the rest yesterday, it was a very nice thing yesterday for the veterans, and Clint did a good job, and the town did, so it's I felt good sitting there and hearing the things, made
The
us feel
Purple
good.
Heart
Yeah,
ceremony.
Purple Heart, thank you,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And I can't wait to see the signs up, I think that's cool too.
Yeah.
That's really cool, so.
Absolutely.
So good job, Clint. Yeah.
Town administrator's report.
Okay, we already talked about the special town meeting. We did receive word late last week from the Mass Cultural Council that our allocation of $5,700 has been provided, which I think is their annual allocation, but still, good news to see that that's arrived. I have, like Larry just spoke about, the Purple Heart celebration that took place yesterday. We had a great turnout. We are now officially designated as a Purple Heart town, and signs will be placed at various entry points
It's
to
cool,
Buckland.
it's really cool.
So yeah,
Are
that
there
was.
any others in our area?
Well, Hatfield just became one a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
I
there's-
know Shelburne, I think, had said something about wanting to know more about
I think
the
they're working.
process.
I think
We
there's-
put one on the bridge as they come in from Shelburne, that they can see the sign, is there anything?
Well, hey, you know, maybe.
I'm just,
maybe.
it'd be like a in your face.
I just had a couple other just kind of reminders that have come up in the last week. So we've had a couple situations where people are leaving trash, or the latest thing was propane canisters outside of the transfer station when it's closed. That is considered illegal dumping. It is something we will report to the police department. We just ask that people not do that. We're gonna start trying to monitor it more. If we have to install cameras, we'll install cameras. Hopefully, we won't have to do that. People just need to remember Tuesdays and Saturdays are the days that the transfer station is open. It's not fair to our attendants to have to pick up trash that's been ripped open by animals because it's been left outside of the gate.
Exactly.
Another reminder, parking, there is no parking at the bottom of North Street. There's 2 signs that indicate the section where you cannot park. There's been a lot of vehicles parked there, which makes an unsafe situation for
You talking about
motorists.
just going up?
Just at the lower part of North as you're
Just
heading up.
just above the.
the laundromat area.
Yes, I was gonna ask,
There's actually a trailer truck parked there today.
thank you.
So I have reached out to Shelburne PD just to kind of bring them up to speed on that situation.
I think some
That's-
people live in the house thinks that's their parking space right
I
there.
mean, it's very clearly marked as no parking in that area, and it's because there's no line of sight coming down off of that hill, and it's really unsafe. So,
A few tickets should take care of that.
That's what I'm saying, I think we
yeah,
need,
some enforcement.
you know, we do, I mean, it's the same with them over in, not, it's a Shelburne side, but it's still us. You know, you stop at the bank here and walk across, and they're going to Bridge Street, they're going 40 miles an hour before they hit the library. Whoa, let's slow down, you know, it's crazy out there,
I
yeah.
mean, it's just unfortunate that could be an accident
Oh,
at
that's
that point.
exactly
We just
it,
are
what I'm
trying to
saying,
keep
yes.
it safe for everybody.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's what I have for this evening. So,
Short
got
and
a
sweet.
lot of information tonight, so.
The Mass
Yeah.
Cultural Council, is that one you applied for, is that one we?
I think
is
it's
that
an-
one
I'm
we
not-
just get?
I'm not entirely, actually Carmela or Cindy Fisher, I reached out to both of them to ask them to give me a little more information on if that's something that is applied to by the Cultural Council, if it's something that's an automatic. It does appear to be that is the amount we've received every year for the last number of years,
Okay, that's
so-
how much?
$5,700.
So I saw that there was work being done at the sand shed, our concert pavilion up there.
Oh, the salt
What's hap-
and
what's
salt
hap-
shed.
Yeah, what's happening with that?
So they're actually, I believe, from my understanding, when the salt shed was put in, it was kept at a certain height to sort of save some money on the cost of installing, and they determined that's really not the right height for their needs. So they've been on their own sort of building it up to get it ready for this winter, and they're also getting it prepped to do some paving work. They've reached out to get 3 quotes, so that's something that will be happening in the not so distant future, is getting
Okay.
that area paved.
Parking for concerts.
Yeah, of course, yes.
It'd make a great concert hall.
It's our own little Tanglewood in
Yeah.
Buckland.
Well, that's what they have in Boston Common. You go
That's
there,
right.
you just see
The
all
half shell.
Yeah, the half shell, yeah.
Is there any reason why that section of road, though, is not paved, you know, when you go past the highway garage and you know, keep going, and there's this one section that's unpaved?
Not sure.
It's called money, Joan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the
All right.
biggest driver. It's just been
Okay.
unpaved for as long as I know.
I'm
It's been
just
unpaved.
curious, you know,
Yeah.
why, you know, there's that little tiny dirt road, you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
like Clint said,
Yeah.
that little tiny stretch would
It's-
probably be.
It's just like at the Buckland Rec. Drive slow so you don't
Yes,
raise dust.
keep the dust down, absolutely. Yep,
Even that little stretch would cost a lot. That's,
sure.
That's,
I'm sure.
yeah,
Everything is expensive.
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
So that's what I've got.
Okay, thank you.
excellent. Any public comment? Some announcements. Our next select board meeting will be on October 7th. And because we're going a little off script, because our town administrator wants a vacation for some reason.
Oh, my goodness.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, the one time.
I know. Yeah, just started and already looking for a break.
It's terrible.
But then after that meeting, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled meeting on the 28th. Both of those meetings will be at 5 p.m. Anything else we need to add for next month?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Looks like that is all we have. So, pretty easy night. very informational night.
Mm-hmm.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.